Okay, today, May 11, 2023, class number 520, in all thy getting. And I started out a little bit ago by saying that Solomon said, in all thy getting, get an understanding. Can't really have anything working in life without an understanding. Understanding in its true sense is substance. Remember, Jesus said up on this rock, he said, you are faith. You are, in Greek, Petros. That's what he said to Simon. His name was Simon. As we said, it means hearing. And he said, you are Petros. You are a stone. You are faith. What he was saying was, you are substance. So when you think of yourself as substance, he said, and up on this rock, that means up on this feeling, up on the feeling of being substance of everything that is to come in your life, I will build my church. I will call you out. So in all that getting, you have to have an understanding. Not the personal sense of yourself, because the personal sense of yourself will always move toward ego. We don't understand all the time from a personal, sensual standpoint. We don't always understand that the senses are to taste, smell, hear, look and see, and feel. That's what they're for. They have no business making any kind of a decision. We, sons of God, choose to use the senses for what they were intended. But sometimes the senses turn right around and try to make decisions, and they're always going to be calling something good or evil, basically based on what they see and what they hear. That was what Jesus meant when he said, judge not by appearances. Because everything appears to be two-sided, opposites, and there's no such thing. Now, with that being said, then let's ask a question. I got this from Dr. Rocco Errico, because I spend a lot of time reading the two books I have, Let There Be Light and There Was Light. And then I have The Mysteries of Creation. And I listen to a lot of his clips on YouTube because he's always breaking down Aramaic. I really like that because the Aramaic language is a language that's, there are three Semitic languages. One is Arabic, the other is Aramaic, and the other one is Hebrew. And so Jesus was from Galilee, and he spoke Eastern Aramaic. So I'm always looking at what he's saying, and he's always saying something that Jesus said. But he asked a question the other day, and that question touched me in such a way I was like, oh, wow, I never looked at it like this. He said, people always say all the time they believe in Jesus. I said it, and I know you have. I believe in God. Remember when Jesus said, you believe in God, believe also in me. So people grab that and go, yeah, I believe in Jesus. He was saying, believe in the I that I am. He wasn't saying believe in this Jesus personality, because remember, he said, in and of myself, I can do nothing. The Father within, he doeth the works. So Rocco Errico says, yeah, that's cool. You say you believe in Jesus, but then he asked this part. Do you believe Jesus? Do you believe what he said? Jesus said, the words I speak, they are spirit and they are life. He's talking about the I am. That I that I am, I speak. Do we believe that? Not just I believe in Jesus. Well, I mean, a lot of people believe in a lot of different things. People believed in Napoleon, and then he fell apart. So, do you believe what the man said? That's the part that keeps you solid and keeps you based in the kingdom. Now, when we say kingdom, remember, every time you hear the word kingdom, you're always thinking about counsel. You're always thinking about based in the word. So I believe the word. Now, with that said, and listening at one of his clips, I made a whole bunch of notes because I had never looked at this way. I spend, as I said, a lot of time reading and studying his breakdown of Aramaic. And he goes deeper than Dr. Lamza. Dr. Lamza translated the Bible, but Dr. Lamza was a lot older. He spent 10 years with him, and then Rocco Errico went deeper and deeper. He even got into the customs of the people and the slang, what they meant when they said certain kinds of things. So, as I said, I do a lot of studying in that stuff. I don't see, without an understanding, how I would be able to go from one day to the next. That's what you see people doing, going from one day to the next without an understanding, because, especially Christians, I believe in Jesus, yeah, but you're not doing the works that he did because you don't believe Jesus. And I had to tell that to myself. I'm like, if I believed Jesus, I wouldn't be out here trying to do what he did. I would be allowing the Father to do what he did, because Jesus allowed the Father to work through him. And a lot of times, that's what I was trying to do. Do the works instead of letting the Father work through me. So, with that said, I studied the clip where he's talking about what the Christian world calls the Sermon on the Mount. But he distinguished this. He made it very clear. Jesus did not do a Sermon on the Mount. I know in Matthew 5 it says, where he's talking about they went up to the mount, and this is what the Christian world calls it, the Sermon on the Mount. And Dr. Errico says Jesus never really gave no sermons. When you think about it, he didn't. Jesus was always on his way somewhere, and people would stop him, or he'd see something interesting. He'd just speak the truth. He was never, ever grabbing people and saying, I organize the movement, and I'm going to keep y'all same people coming every week, and I'm going to keep telling you about this, that, and the other, and all y'all going to give tithes and offerings, and we're going to just stay in it. This is supposed to be the greater works. No, he was just living his life. God was working through him and reaching people. And so, if we recall, he called 12 guys to be with him, and then a couple of ladies started coming too. And he just, he was just living his life. And then before you know it, 70 people were following what he was doing. Sort of like what we have right now. You click on Instagram, how many people are following you? And it's like, I remember I was looking at something last night, and somebody sent me a note that said, follow, I forget who it was they wanted me to follow. And my mind was like, for what? I don't want to see what they're doing. If I'll follow you if you are sharing your life, your understanding, your substance, and things appear to be changing, then I'll follow and do what you're doing. But I'm not going to continuing where we were, as again, I apologize. He says, seeing the multitudes, he taught them. Seeing the multitudes, he taught them. As I said, it was not a church. It wasn't a church at all. It was just a group of people who followed him, and just like they went up on the mountain, and they didn't have enough to eat that day. But they went, 3 days' journey, so they followed him. And so now we have followed him, and that he taught, God taught through him. So starting with verse 1, and I picked out the ones that he had, made notes on them, and then I added a few later on because he didn't cover them all specifically. But it starts out, you go in the so-called Sermon on the Mount, it says, blessed are they. But the Aramaic term for blessed is bliss or blissful. So he's, which really means happy. And he says, blissful are they who surrender to God, who let go of pride. The only, as long as we're carrying the ego or some kind of pride, we're not going to be happy or blissful. It says, for the counsel of heaven belongs to you. Now, the kingdom of heaven, the word of God, the promises of God. In other words, in the midst of whatever, if you have let go of pride, you will get or receive counsel from the Father. In other words, literally, I will show you what I have done. Remember, Solomon, that which is to be has already been. I will show you how to do this. I know what you're trying to do, but if you quit trying to do it, how many times have you, I don't know about you, but I know how many times I said, well, this is what God said, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, I'm going to make this work. I know it works. I have faith. I'm going to prove that I have faith. And so a lot of it has to do with people making affirmations, people who are making all these statements about how stuff works. That's pride. I'm just going to keep focusing on trying to make this work. And it's like I'm not going to surrender to God. But let me see, if I surrender to God, I am letting go of the ego. I am letting go of my pride. I am surrendering to God. Okay, you know how this is done, so I'm just going to let you do it. Case in point, I had some stuff I needed to copy yesterday, and it dawned on me that I had neglected for over a year to buy cartridges for my printer because I didn't really need to print anything. I just forgot about it, and I forgot I didn't have them. So then it was like, oh, wow, I need to get some stuff printed. So I have a friend who lives behind me, and I got the lady across the street who lives right across from me. And I called the lady right across the street, and she wasn't home. I left a message. And then I sent her a text. And then I said, you know what, I'm just going to let this go. No, I'll get it fixed. Even if I have to go to Staples or I don't know, I'll just, whatever. And when I stopped and forgot about it and took the attitude of, it'll get done, it popped in my head to, oh, wow, ask Orlando. That just welled up on the inside of me. And so rather than call him, I said, well, I'll get to him after a while. When I pulled out to go down the hill, Orlando pulled out, and I said, oh, wow. So I said, okay, God, I see what you're saying. And so ask him now. So I asked him, and he said, yeah, I'll make you the copies and what have you. And so I hadn't even thought of him. He wasn't even on my head. And he took the stuff that I had, and he said, I'll get it to you after a while. I've got a meeting at this. And he told me all the stuff he had to do. But then he said, before the day is over, I'll get them. I said, that's fine. I need it by tomorrow morning. He said, okay, I got you. Now, rather than rack my brain, I surrendered to God and said, this will get done. I'm not going to concern myself with it. I don't need to prove that I know how to do this. That's ego. I just need to understand that if I surrender to God, the thing's done. One more example was I was thinking, I was saying, man, sometimes you're holding on to stuff that you don't need to be holding on to. And, I still got a closet filled with Cynthia's clothes, and then in another room I got her mother's clothes. And I'm saying, man, what? And it's like, I'm going to do this. I went and got a whole bunch of boxes, which I was going to pack them up. And then it was like, I'm going to take them down to these little boxes at the gas station. And never did it. Never do it. Yesterday, I just said, well, I wasn't even thinking about the clothes. I said, well, let me go get the mail. Went out, opened up the mailbox. Shauna's still laughing at this. There was this card in the mailbox. It was addressed to Cynthia. And you know what it said? Vietnam Veterans Association. We need reusable clothes. And it was addressed to Cynthia. I told Sean, I said, well, they must have, Cynthia is saying, you ain't never going to get rid of that stuff, so I'm going to have them write a letter to me and tell me to let the clothes go. In other words, I was holding on because there's a little piece of you, for some strange reason, that will feel like, it's like the subtlety of the serpent saying you're guilty because you getting rid of her stuff and this. I was like, then I thought to myself in my head, man, how stupid is that? Let it go. That's where they get this statement, let go and let God. How many people do that, though? Let go and how many people let go and let God? They don't let God do nothing. They try to force God to do something. I know I've done it. And so, and a lot of people are afraid that, if I just let go and don't try to do this anymore, then it's just going to never get done. And it's going to mean I didn't have any faith. I'm just going to not let go. And I'm going to keep trying. Well, the best thing to do is don't try. Just let it go. Just realize I have the mind of Christ. We're going to talk about that a little more in the next couple of weeks to go. But if I have mind of Christ, that mind already knows how something was done. It knows that there's nothing that is undone. So I'm only going to be blissful. That means ecstatically happy when I surrender totally to the fact that God has done this. And let me just behold what God has done. Number 2, this is a real strong one. Blissful are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Now, in Aramaic, they will, Dr. Erica, they will inherit the land. Now, you are blissful if you are meek. That means pliable. That means bendable. Just like you see, as I said a couple of times, there's big weeping willow trees and other trees. When even sometimes in tornadoes and hurricanes and all that, you see the trees bending way down to the ground. That means that they're going with the flow, and then they stand back up. And so a lot of times we're not pliable. We start fighting with the appearance. It appears to be something that's ridiculous. I can't do this. This is coming at me. This is coming at me. This is hard. This is tough. Well, you have to bend with it. In order to bend with it is if you could put these two together, I surrender to God. God, how is this storm taken care of? Remember when he was out there, Jesus didn't fight with the storm. He just said, peace, be still. What did that mean? He did the fight of faith. The disciples were, don't you care that we perish? And Jesus was like, what is perish? In my mind, the mind of Christ, nobody perishes. I'm pliable. I'm bending with the storm. Peace, be still. I'm talking to myself. I'm not talking to the storm. I'm talking to myself. Peace, be still. You know, the trees bend in the storm because there's this self-knowing. Remember, we said the goal is God realization, and the purpose is what? To be able to express, or to, better yet, behold that which God has done. That's the purpose. I am here to enjoy, to be happy, to feel the reality of what has taken place. In the midst of the storm, you will be given the answer. You will inherit the land. You will now change the word land to consciousness, awareness. You will receive a revelation because you have surrendered to God. Sometimes it's just, okay, God, what do you got to say about this? Well, you got to remember, though, the I am is God. God speaks to God. God is all. Until we come into the complete conviction that there is nothing but God, we will keep fighting with that which appears to not be God. Or we'll start doing stuff like, oh, wow, God ain't going to put more on me than I can bear. And we know better than that. God is not putting anything on you because he'd be putting it on himself. God will be destroying himself. Remember when Lillian DeWater said that the little bugs were eating up her tree? And she was sitting there saying, well, you know, the bugs are from God, and so they're not destructive. And then it dawned on her, wait a minute, there's no life in these bugs. This is something out here. Stuff out here has no life in it. All of the life is in that which I am. So therefore, I'm pliable. Well, the next day, the bugs were on the ground dead. Why? Because something out here has no life in it. You are the life of everything that's in your house, everything that's in your experience. You are the life of it because God is all there is. God fills all space. We'll get to that in just a second. Okay. Number 3, blissful are they who are hungry and thirsty, it says, for righteousness, which in Aramaic is justice. Dr. Errico says, for a genuine piety. I mean, how many piety is godliness or God? How many people have a God that is not genuine? Money is some people's God, and it is not genuine. Strong enough wind, and it'll blow away. And how many people have said, man, I got more than enough. I could spend this. I could do this. I could do that. And they don't know where the rest is coming from. And before you know it, they had hit the lottery, and now all of it's gone. A genuine piety. The true God. They will be satisfied. Isn't that amazing? The only way to really be satisfied is to hunger and thirst for the genuine piety, the genuine God. In other words, I've come to a point where I'd rather be dead than to not know what God is, to not know that God is the self of everybody. God is the self of me, you, and everybody on the planet. There's nobody who is different from what God is. There are all of these personalities, egos, all these different people acting certain kinds of ways. Well, yeah, you see that. Those are appearances. However, right where they are is God. In Jeremiah 3, he says, Jeremiah 1, and I'll quote it again in a minute, where he says, does not my spirit fill all space? Isn't that just kind of saying I'm everywhere all the time? There's no place where I am not. Quit looking out here for me, because the me that you're looking for is the me that you are. I express as you. See, I'm hungry and thirsty for a genuine piety, the truth. It says you will eat and drink truth you will be well satisfied. That's what we call El Shaddai, the God who is all, the God who is more than enough. Isn't that amazing? God is all you're ever looking for. I don't care what appears to be dealing with you, coming at you. In the midst of all of it, you are looking for God, a genuine piety. You're not looking for some God that's separate and apart from you to get you out of the storm. There are songs out there. I remember Rand Fallon and a few others. They had this song out there, the Canton Spirituals, all these different groups. I've been in the storm too long. You ain't had no business in the storm. To begin with, God ain't in no storm. I've been in the storm too long. Well, how long is too long? A half a second is too long. What part of you is in the storm? Your thought life. Your thought of what might happen if I don't get out of this. What might happen if I can't turn this corner? If I can't turn this thing around? That's the storm. That's the part that's in the storm. And when you are able to take your thoughts, now remember, I am going to do what? Surrender my thinking to the way God thinks. Isaiah 55. My thoughts are not your thoughts, and my ways are not your ways. My thoughts and my ways are higher than yours. My word goes forth and accomplishes all whereunto it is sent. Well, how does the word go forth? God speaks and the earth melts. I am sitting here watching God speak to itself. And it shows up out here. I'm the vessel, Son of God, that God is working through. Better yet, I'm beholding what God has already done. That which is to be has already been. Okay. Now we know that we have surrendered to God. We know that we're bending with the storm. We're bending with what the so-called evil, because there is no evil. But we're bending. We're pliable. We're looking at it, and we're realizing peace be still. Well, where is that peace? It's in the kingdom of heaven. Oh, you mean my peace comes from hearing the word, which I believe. That's why we started out with, do you believe in Jesus or in God, or do you believe God? But what is God? God is the word that becomes flesh. So I believe that. How do I know I believe that? Because there's nothing else for me to believe. I am the Son of God. This personal sense of myself does not believe that because it needs to see a sign. That's the generation that Jesus called unfaithful. What does unfaithful mean? It means egotistical, trying to do something, trying to make something come to pass. The senses cannot make anything come to pass. They can prolong the inevitable. Okay. So now, after we're well satisfied now because we've already surrendered, we're already pliable, we've already been hungry and thirsty. We want God in every situation, no matter what it is. Then we come up with blissful, and this is probably the most powerful of all of the statements. Blissful are the compassionate. Upon them will be more compassion. You want compassion? You know how people say, man, I've been going through this, nobody seems to care. Man, I'm struggling with this. And, people will say stuff like, man, I got my own stuff. Or they won't get in touch with you at all. And so in your own mind, there are thoughts that are coming to you. Let me quit saying it like that. There are thoughts that come to me often. You should get in touch with such and such a friend. I'm like, okay, but all right. That happened to me this week. One of our close friends is diagnosed with dementia. One day he knows who he is, the next day he doesn't. One day he'll say his wife is his mother. He'll say his wife is somebody he doesn't even know at all. He's done stuff like gotten out of the house and been a couple of miles away and somebody knew him and called her and said, we got your husband down here. He's sitting on the sidewalk. And so I didn't know any of this. I was waking up, and you know how you're waking up and your mind is not in a fog because you've been listening to YouTube clips and praying. And so when you went to sleep, you were at peace, or you woke up, your eyes just popped open, and you felt good. And it was like, you should call, I don't want to say his name, but you should call him. And I said, I don't even remember. I said, I remember his phone number, and I was trying, and I dialed one, and there wasn't it. And I dialed another one, and then I said, it must be this one. But I wasn't looking at anything. I just remembered from calling and talking. We used to call and talk a lot. And so it was like, here's the number. Just popped up in I'm getting the kingdom of God, because it dawns on me that I'm being called to show some compassion. So I called, and his wife answered the phone, and she was so glad to hear from me. She didn't know what to do. And she is Cynthia's cousin. And she knew what we had been through, and she's going through the same thing. So I called her, and we started talking. I started sharing stuff, and I was telling her this. And she was like, you know, don't you? I said, yeah, I know exactly. I had 5 years of this. And she was like, yeah, I've been going through it at least that. She said, it's just he comes and goes. And I said, yeah. I said, but the whole idea is, and something stopped me. Don't you try to teach this lady anything. Just be compassionate. Just understand. Just realize that in the kingdom of heaven, there's nobody with dementia. In the kingdom of heaven, you just waiting on me to speak. Where's the kingdom of heaven? In me. Where is that? In my mind. Live in your mind right now. Peace, be still. And we just had before I know it, we had talked about an hour and 15 minutes. Now, you know, that's a long time to talk to somebody who said, I haven't seen you in a year, because she was at Cynthia's funeral. You know, she's Cynthia's cousin. And so we talked, and we just had a long talk. And I was sharing some stuff, and she was saying, you know, I know you know. She said, Bach, I know you know. She said, I said, hey, I've been through that storm. I know. And it was just the idea of being compassionate. It's up to God to speak when she's at peace. I was like, I got a couple of things here, and you can have it if you like. We talked about sometimes he appears to be incontinent. Sometimes he'll go to the bathroom and he'll just stand there. He forgot what he went there for. He'll eat a strong breakfast, but the rest of the day won't have it. Then it dawned on me, okay, wait a minute. So every time I get this call I go see Cynthia's uncle. And these are some people who have been fairly nasty to me over the years. But God is saying, have you surrendered? Are you pliable? Are you bending with what people say about you? Are you just letting go? Are you searching for me in all of this? Because what you do unto the least of these, my brothers, you do unto me. It's me who's going to see Cynthia's uncle, not your personality self. I go to see myself. I mean, think about that. God is going to see God. What does God see when God looks out here and looks at you and me and everybody else? God sees himself. And those who are awake to that point realize God is using me to show somebody compassion. What happens when you do that? You're blissful because your heart is tender. You have a tender heart now. You have the heart of God. God is showing compassion on himself, not a sick person. And this really touched me. It was like the formation of a baby. This is all Rocco Errico. And when he said this, I had never looked at it like this. And I had been thinking about this. He says the formation of a baby takes place in the compassion of the womb. This is the energy of God. And we are all that energy. And I said, wait a minute. And I had posted something like this on Facebook the other day. It was like before you were in the womb, I formed you. I knew you. So you'll hear some of the metaphysics, the mystics, the metaphysical teachers say, there's no such thing as birth and toddling, get old, get sick, die, or what have you. There's nobody was ever born, and you'll say to yourself, "Oh, wait a minute." He says, "This hit me real early this morning. Before you were in the womb, I knew you. Before I formed you in the womb," and I was like, "Oh, that which is formed in the womb is not the outward appearance. That which formed in the womb is the energy of God, and it takes on the appearance of a baby. Because why would God have some children be formed and they're deformed, and some are not? All of these childhood problems. God is saying, I don't know of any babies with childhood problems. So when you're watching TV and you see these little babies and they have Down syndrome and they have autism and Asperger's and all this craziness and all this kind of stuff, God didn't form that. God didn't form that at all. God knows who you are before you enter into the womb. A man and a woman can't make a baby. They can be the appearance of what God worked through. But the moment a child appears to be deformed, as far as the formation is concerned, why don't we have the compassion to say, wait a minute, God's not making deformity. God doesn't even know what that is. We would begin to see healing because the compassion will be up on us because we are doing what? Looking to express that which God is, because God is expressing himself. There's nothing in that womb but God. There's nothing that's on this earth but God. But the senses look at it and call it evil, or they call it good. What we call a human being, that's nothing but the energy of God. And that same term, this is what blew me away. In Aramaic, the term compassion is the same word for bowels. What? Bowels. Why? Because bowels move and eliminate waste. So from the bowels of God, the waste of deformity is eliminated. The heart is tender and moves to eliminate pride, energy. Pride. Energy never dies. And this thought came to me and I wrote it down. I will dwell in the consciousness of Christ throughout the ages. You see, we're only dealing with one age right now. We're only dealing with this one age. You know, we came to right now. What age did you dwell in 10 years ago? What age did you dwell in 20 years ago? How about 30 years ago? I was born in 49. So from 49 to 59, 10 years old, that was a different age. Totally different. If you don't think so, ask yourself these two questions. In 1959, what was a computer? In 1959, what was a cell phone? See, what was technology? What was digital? Everything was analog. Dial up, rotary phone. You're in a different age now. You're in what they call the TikTok generation. You go and you go anywhere in the public, and what did you see people doing? Almost walking out in the streets, looking at a cell phone, looking at TikTok. And what's so pitiful is they're getting their facts and their news from TikTok. Isn't that ridiculous? I'm getting mine from within me. I'm sitting there looking at TV and seeing and hearing all this stuff that's trying to suck me in to believe it. And I just refuse. There's no sense in me believing that. I believe God. I believe Jesus. So therefore, whatever you're telling me that Donald Trump is doing, that any of these politicians are doing, debt ceilings, I don't care. I know that in God, in the mind of Christ, what is a debt ceiling? What is limitation in the mind of God? The whole idea is I need to constantly be focused on what's going on in heaven. And where do we say heaven is? In the consciousness, in the mind. God realization means I have the mind of Christ, and that's the only place that I'm going to live. You know, that's my story, and what am I doing? I'm sticking to it. See, that's all there is. And in the mind of Christ, all is always well. God is everywhere. God is all. There is nothing else. Now let's go to the next one. If y'all understand all that, and you got to remember, all that get an understanding. You have substance now that you can deal with. Okay, here's the next one. Blissful are they who are clear in heart. You know, it says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. I always wondered what that meant. Then it started to make sense to me over the last couple of years. And then when I heard this from Rocco Errico, blissful are they who are clear in heart. That means clear in mind, clear of strife, clear of envy, clear of jealousy. You will see God. Why? Because when you're clear of all that stuff that I said, strife, envy, and jealousy, and pride, you see you. You have nothing to be jealous of, nothing to be envious of. You don't care what personality sells out here, the apparent personalities do. You don't care. It can't affect you. You say, yeah, but if they do this, it's going to affect. No, it's not. It's not going to affect you. Nothing can affect you except nothing. Because nothing can affect nothing. You are the something. You are all there is. So when we understand that hell is right here, where? In the personal sense of mind. And clear in heart does what? Hebrews 2:14. Destroys the works of the devil, the power of death. Now that takes us back to what? If I just let go, my dream is going to die. No, it's not. If I let go, my dream is going to come forth. Why? Because God is the only one with the dream. God is the only one with the vision, and I am the mind, the Son of God, that God is working through. Like the prodigal son. He came to himself. You ever thought about what that means? He came to himself. That means what? He realized his godliness. He realized who he was. And he said, I'm going home to my father. He has more than enough to spare. And he went home. And his father showed compassion. See how this stuff interacts? His father showed compassion. My son who was dead is now alive. He was blind, but now he sees. He was asleep, but now he's woke. You see, but in order for the son to go home, what did he need to do? He needed to be compassionate. Don't you think in his mind and in his heart he knew his daddy missed him? I need to go home. Again, this is a parable. Just like Genesis 2 is a parable. This is just a story. But we are to take that story to heart because it's going to clean us from thinking from a personal sense of self to the reality of what we are. See, the clear in heart, the clear in mind. I am clear in my mind that I have nothing to hold on to. Why? Because I have found that God is all. There is nothing but God. That's what I'm holding on to. Okay, we're coming to the end. Blissful are, it says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. That's what it says in the King James. Dr. Erica from the Aramaic. Blissful are the practicers of peace. There's a difference in a peacemaker and one who practices peace. See, you can be thrown way off by just taking something. Jesus didn't speak Greek and it didn't speak English. Spoke Aramaic. And Aramaic says, blessed are those, or blissfully happy are those who practice peace. That's when you're called the Son of God. You are the ones who give light in the world. You are the salt. Now think about this. Isaiah 26:3. I think that's the one that says, he will keep in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee. Just think about it. Every day, every time you think about who you are, my mind is on God. How is that? I'm constantly thinking some thought of God. I'm constantly thinking, I'm meditating. I'm keeping that face godly. I'm not making judgments. I'm not doing any of that. There's another one that says, the effect of righteousness is peace. That's Isaiah 32. You'll find it in verse 17 and 18. The effect of righteousness. The effect of justice. Paul said, Romans 5, therefore being justified by faith, we have what? Peace with God. I'm justified every time I realize I am the substance of that which I am. It starts taking desire away from you for things, and it starts opening you up to the desire for piety, a true God. You don't have to concern yourself about things if you know them well. I have a clear mind. I am surrendered totally to God. I am pliable, bending with the storm. I have a clear heart. I am practicing peace. I'm meditating. I am the salt of the earth. I am the light of the world. I am peace be still. Look at John 14. What did Jesus say? Verse 27. My peace I leave you. My peace I give you. Sometimes all you got to do is think about the fact that Jesus says to me, I have a mind which is filled with peace. I'm going to think about, no matter what, I'm pliable. What does that mean? I'm bending with the storm. But what am I doing while I'm bending with the storm? I'm practicing peace. I'm saying to myself, no matter what appears to be going on out here, my mind is filled with peace. I'm thinking about peace. I'm thinking about the joy of the Lord being my strength. In this world, there will be storms. There's going to be storms. But we're going to be pliable. We're going to hunger and thirst for the truth. We're going to be surrendered to God. We're going to let go of pride. We're going to be compassionate, tenderhearted, clear-hearted, practices of peace. That's the only way that we can fear not and know that we have overcome the world. Because the world is prideful. The world is filled with not being compassionate. The world is filled with envy and thirsty and hungry for what? That which is not God. I'm going to get mine. I'm going to stack up my paper. You hear that all the time. People do anything to get the almighty dollar. Now are you the energy of God. Now are you the Son of God. For you have been born of the Spirit. Remember when Jesus, Nicodemus, no, he didn't understand it all, did he? Jesus said, you have to be born again. What do you mean? You have to understand that you were born of the Spirit. He said, how can I enter back in my mother's womb and I'm grown? And Jesus was like, you are a leader of the Jews and you don't understand what I'm talking about. And think how many times you've been to church and listened to preachers and they have no clue what born again means. They think you being born again because you walked up there and said, I believe in the Son of God. I believe he died for my sins. I'm saved. What? Are you saved from your thinking? Are you saved from your envies and your jealousies? Those same people that stand right up there at the church front and talk about being saved, walk right out of there, make a judgment about people, talk about folks. Then somebody can come on their mind and their teeth get set on edge. They're not clear from that stuff. And no, you're not going to be cleared of all of that in one day, in 1 hour. But you will be cleared of it as you practice. Practice makes perfect. It says, if you are patient, that's what he's talking about now over there in the 15th chapter, John. You know, the fruit of the Spirit. He said, man, if you be patient. In Galatians, is it 5? Yeah, I think it is. Fruit of the Spirit, love, that's compassion, joy, peace, faith, patience, meekness, be pliable. See, it comes back. Paul understood it. Kindness, goodness, self-control. How many people can you think of that are totally practicing peace? They think peace is shooting you because you knocked on the door. I feared for my life. What? You don't have a life. God is life. I don't have a personal life. You are clear in mind. When you're clear in mind, you see God. What does that mean? Whenever you say God is everything, I don't have no dog in this fight. I'm fighting the good fight of faith. What is that? The good fight of understanding. I'm putting all my cards on the table of the fight of understanding. You see, I know that in the midst of this storm, I have received understanding. I have received the word. Why? Because God speaks to himself. God is not speaking to Michael Orr. God is speaking to the self. The self is God. What does it mean to be persecuted for righteousness' sake? You know, that lady said, you know what, enough is enough. Her name is what, E. Jean Carroll? Enough is enough. This man sexually abused me, I don't know how many, in the 90s, the end of the 90s or what have you. And then he comes on TV and tells people all about, he doesn't know me. He called me a liar. He defamed me. He did all this kind of stuff. She took the road that she understood, and that was what? I'm suing him. I know that I told my friend exactly the same day he did this, I told her. They went to court. This lady came and said, yeah, no, she called me right on the phone, told me what he did. And he's up there bragging about doing this kind of thing, saying, I don't know her and she's a liar, and, oh, she's not my type. Now, that's not for you guys to make a judgment other than the righteousness of God would never defame itself. Jesus said, judge righteous judgment. And then he gets a new platform to go do it again. And then he's not paying any attention to the fact that he's got a federal independent counsel prosecutor that's looking at everything he says every day, all day. And he goes up on there and talks about how he did all these certain kinds of things. The guy's going, I can do whatever I want to do. The latest being, I can take classified documents if I want to. And when they're in my possession, they are declassified. They're mine. I can show them to whoever I want to show them to. Do you know anybody else who would do that? Knowing that they're being prosecuted, knowing that the people are drawing conclusions, and then you have a network say, we're going to give you this platform to share this stuff. He's just nailing himself. And she's being persecuted now. They're coming after her like you wouldn't believe, like wildfire. Why? because she says, I am righteous. I did not lie. I'm justified in what I'm doing. You know, I am compassionate. I know this is not right. Nobody has the right to do this. Blissful are you who mourn. Why would you mourn? People, you know, I mourned the so-called death of my wife until I realized nobody dies if life is eternal. They go on to the next leg of the journey. There's a spiritual energy that they are that is alive throughout the ages. I'm practicing peace every time I do that. Now, this little imp, what do they call it? You know, the sons of God presented themselves before the Lord and Satan came through. That's always going to be there. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You're guilty. You should be feeling this. You should be feeling that. No, I shouldn't. I should be feeling peace. I should be knowing God. I should be clear of heart, which is what I am. I have the mind of Christ. I am looking for true piety. I am hungering and thirsting for God. Where am I mourning? I mourn when I don't know God. When it appears that I don't know God, I mourn. But when I know that I know that I know that I know God, because, why do I know God? Because God is all. Everywhere, all the time. And Jeremiah says, doesn't my spirit fill all space? What part of you is a space that God does not fill? And when you find that space, you fill it up. My arm hurts. Well, God is filling that space. My back hurts. God is filling that space. I'm heartbroken. God is filling that space. Yeah, I know you get the point. You see what I'm saying? God is filling all space. And there is no part of you that's ever separate and apart from what God is. These are the teachings that he shared that day. And as we go forward next week, then we'll go with something more about God. I really want to share with you some of the stuff from the Ultimate, from Marie Watts, because I'm going to tell you something. When this stuff starts to make sense, it's called understanding, which is the substance of that which you're standing on. This is the true teachings of the Christ, which were on the mount. And by the way, the mount means those who followed him high up in consciousness. Amen. So it is.